Hello students. Today we are going to continue talking about inequalities, but we're going to talk about compound inequalities. A compound inequality is two or more inequalities. Typically it's just two, and this year it'll just be two inequalities that are joined together by and or or. Well, we're going to start first with an inequality, compound inequality that is joined by and. So if I have x is greater than or equal to -2 and x is less than 5, then I need to figure out what all x's are included in that, and I can do that by graphing. So let's just graph the first one first. And so I'm going to draw my number line, and x is greater than or equal to -2. So I'm going to put -2 right here. It's greater than or equal to, so I put my closed dot, and I'm going to draw an arrow that goes this way. And for today, I am going to do highlighted because that's going to be important for just a second. Okay? So x is greater than or equal to -2. Now let's graph x is less than 5. So I'm going to do another number line, and I'm going to graph x is less than 5. So I'm going to put 5 about right here, and I know it's less than, so I have an open dot. And so I'm going to go this way, and just for today, I'm going to kind of highlight, and I'm going to go there. So this is x is less than 5. Now how can we take both of those graphs and put them together? So I'm going to have everything that is greater than or equal to -2, but less, or and less than 5. So the way I would do that on my graph is I would put -2, and I know it's going to have a closed dot, and I'm going to put 5, and it's going to be an open dot, and it's basically where they cross. So it's going to be everything between -2 and 5. Now notice that there are no arrows on the outside, because in order for it to be and, then the x has to satisfy both of these inequalities. So it has to be greater than or equal to -2 and less than 5, and so that's everything between -2 with a closed dot and 5 with an open dot. So everything between -2 and 5 is where my x's lie for this and statement. Now since this is an and statement, I can actually rewrite this inequality in one statement. And the variable is always going to go in the middle. And my lowest number is going to be on the left. And so it's x is greater than or equal to -2, but less than 5. So anytime I have an and compound inequality, I can rewrite it as one statement. It's only for and statements, though, that I'm able to do that. So I would read this as x is greater than or equal to -2 and x is less than 5. And if you look at this compared to the graph, -2 and -2 are both on the left, 5 and 5 are both on the right. I go from least to greatest, and my variable's in the middle, closed dot, open dot, and there I have it. So draw a squiggly in your composition book, and we're going to look at or statements. So I've got a compound inequality that has an or statement. So x is greater than or equal to -1, or x is less than -4. So let's figure out what all x's are included by graphing it. So first I'm going to graph x is greater than or equal to -1. So I'm going to put -1 about right here, and I'm greater than or equal, so closed dot, and I'm going greater than or equal. So there's my graph. And I'm going to highlight this one a little bit just because of what we're doing today. You won't have to do that when we actually do the assignment. And so I'm going to graph the next one, which is x is less than -4. So here's my number line, and I'm going to put -4 about right there. But it says x is less than that, so I've got an open dot, and I'm going to the left. Now you'll see that they don't cross, and that's okay. That's what happens with an or statement most of the time. So in this case, I would combine the graphs with -4, open dot, arrow pointing to the left for less than, -1, closed dot, arrow pointing to the right for greater than. So all of my x's that work here are the ones that are less than -4 or greater than or equal to -1, and there's really nothing that overlaps, because typically, most of the time, in an or statement, the lines do not overlap. Now, you're probably thinking, I could rewrite this just like I did an and statement. No, you can't. This is the last thing I can do. I cannot combine these statements to make one or statement. I have to do x is greater than or equal to -1 or x is less than -4. That's all I can do. So I graphed them all in one number line, and then here are my statements. So just for fun, let's do 2 more examples on how we would do this. Now this one I know is an and statement because it's written all as one statement. So I'm going to go ahead and identify that as and this one is or because it says or. So let's graph this. So I'm going to draw my number line. I know I've got a -1 and a 7. Excuse me, and I know that if I start in the middle and I talk about my -1, x is greater than -1. So I'm going to do an open dot, and I'm going to draw this way. But it's less than or equal to 7, so this is going to be a closed dot, and I'm going to stop at 7. And that is the graph of this inequality. -1 to 7, open dot, closed dot. So let's graph this or. I'm going to go ahead and draw my number line. I know I've got a -3, and I'm going to have a 0. This says x is less than -3, so I'm going to have an open dot and go this way. But it's greater than or equal to 0, so I'm going to have a closed dot and go that way. And this would be the graph of this or statement. Now, in the first example, I did each one separately and then put them together. That was just to show you how I would graph them. From when we graph them, you don't have to do 3. You're just going to do one number line and put them both on the number line first. The next thing we're going to look at is Venn diagrams and do a quick review of Venn diagrams. So in Venn diagrams, I've got 2 sets. The first set is P, and it includes A, B, C, and D. And then my second set is Q, and that includes C, D, E, and F. So let's draw a Venn diagram. We're going to draw a Venn diagram. This is going to be set P. This is going to be set Q. So what is in set P that's not in set Q? And that would be A and B. And what is in both of them? C and D. And what is in Q that's not in P? And that's E, F. So we've labeled our Venn diagrams. Now I'm going to introduce to you 2 more symbols today, okay? And so what if I asked you, what are the points that are in both P and Q? The way I would write that is the intersection of set P and Q. And the way we write that is P with an upside down U, Q. Now that upside down U looks like an N. And the way I remember this is the intersection of P and Q. So what is in both P and Q? And that would be C and D. Because those are the points that are the letters that are in both of them. So it intersects, P intersects Q with C and D. Now the next thing we would look at is, instead of and, what about or? Which are in P or Q, and P or Q would be the union. So the union of P or Q is written with an upside down symbol. So this would be P union Q, or the union of P and Q, which means which ones are in P or Q, or which ones are in both, is the way it really works out to be. So the answer to that would be A, B, C, D, E, and F, because all of those letters are in P or Q. Everything is there. Now, when we talk about Venn diagrams, we're talking about the intersection, which is the middle part, and the union, which is everything that's included. We don't write anything twice. That's why we didn't write the C and D twice, because we just need to put it one time. So the union is looks like a U, and the intersection is an upside down U, so that we can tell the and the or of a Venn diagram. For your practice problems this weekend, what I'd like for you to do is to graph these two compound inequalities. The first one is m is greater than or equal to -4 or less than 5. And the second one is r is less than -2 or r is greater than -1. Again, I only want you to put it on one number line for A, one number line for B. Take a picture of your work and turn it in through Edmodo using the turn in button. Don't send it as a direct post. Use the turn in button in Edmodo.